Deputy Speaker, I move the motion relating to animal welfare in the terms in which it appears on the notice paper. Deputy Speaker, I would add that cruelty to animals is something I've long stood against in this place because, like most in the community, we understand that animal cruelty is just plain wrong. It is, of course, also a shocking reflection on the ethics and character of those who inflict it or who turn a blind eye to it. Imagine the community's shock then when in 2013 the Abbott government abolished the National Strategy for Animal Welfare and its advisory committee, and the community's dismay when the consequence of that decision was that animal welfare standards became the sole preserve of the states and territories. After all, this is the level of government who've consistently done a terrible job safeguarding animals and clearly can't be trusted. So, Deputy Speaker, no wonder we welcome this government's commitment to at least re-establish an animal welfare strategy, with $5 million set aside for that purpose in the last budget. But it's only a small step and well short of the comprehensive national oversight needed, because we have drifted into an undeniable animal welfare crisis, and that's where we'll stay without reform. This crisis is particularly acute where commodification and profits intersect with animal welfare. For example, many in my home state of Tasmania are appalled by revelations, as recently as today, about conditions in the state's largest puppy mill, Tasmanian Labradoodles. Mercifully, a lengthy legal battle finally led to the RSPCA closing the mill in July and rehoming more than 250 dogs. But the reality is that many puppy mills still legally exist across the country, using dogs as breeding machines for profit, with some puppies fetching many thousands of dollars each. And in the process, the breeding animals are often deprived of even their own most basic needs and spend their lives in crates or cages, bearing litter after litter. Rarely, if ever, are they allowed out to run, play or to curl up on the couch with the family. Deputy Speaker, another example of the crisis is the greyhound racing industry, where welfare issues are well documented and widespread, and clearly not the result of a few bad apples, as some would have you believe. No wonder my office is constantly contacted by members of the community who share my disgust with this industry and its appalling treatment of dogs. Frankly, shame on the industry for the outrageous levels of injury and death, physical overexertion, inadequate housing, lack of socialisation and environmental enrichment, cruel training practices, illegal live baiting, administration of banned or unregistered substances, and euthanasia of poorly performing or unwanted dogs. Indeed, just since lodging my notice for this motion last month, the number of reported on-track deaths this year has increased from 98 to 116, and track injuries have grown from 8,449 to 9,508. Moreover, 43, or 1 in every 6 dogs so-called retired from the industry in the last year, has been killed, which is appalling, and even more so when you consider that Australia has the largest greyhound racing industry in the world, and it is one of just 7 countries where it's still legal. But of course, the $4 billion waged annually on greyhound racing gives you a clue as to why governments have continued to turn a blind eye to this reckless cruelty. Now, Deputy Speaker, noting that the Melbourne Cup is tomorrow, let's not forget the horse racing industry, where 7 horses have died in the last decade running the Cup, and 1 horse is killed on an Australian racetrack every 2 days. And again, there's the issue of overbreeding, as illustrated shockingly in the case of Black Caviar, who, in the 10 years since her so-called retirement, was forced to bear 9 foals before becoming sick and being euthanised, which is not an unusual story. Broodmares routinely being constantly either pregnant, lactating or both for their entire breeding lives without any substantial rest and ending up with complex health problems. Indeed, mares in Australia are forced to bear around 15,000 foals each year, only about 30% of which ever make it to the track. All this is to say, Deputy Speaker, that we're in a crisis and that we should be working to fix it. That's why I'm moving this motion calling on the government to set up an independent Office of Animal Welfare, an agency which can take a leadership role in developing and overseeing animal welfare in Australia and bring the states and territories to the table to improve standards and to address this crisis. To do anything less, Deputy Speaker, is unconscionable complicity in ongoing cruelty. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.